This is Dwight.
Hey, Dwight, how's it going? Chip Diamond here. How are you?
Good.
I'm calling with Thrive Real Estate Team. Just giving you a call. We're trying to find some local off-market investment properties that might be coming down the pipeline you can help me out with. Throw a dog a bone, if you know what I mean.
I've got right now, anything I've got that I even know of is all sitting in 55 plus mobile home parks.
Well, that's good. I like the elderly.
Let me.
Yeah, please.
I have one, but
Shoot.
She's just dropped it to 15. I don't think she'll go any lower. It needs a bit of work.
So the place is a dump, is what you're telling me.
It's not a dump, but...
Bathroom operable?
Oh, both bathrooms are operable.
All right. I might take a dump there just to see how we've had plumbing issues with the 55 plus communities. You'd be surprised.
There have been a few, yeah, no kidding.
This is April.
Hey, April, Chip Diamond, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Oh, could be better, but I'm not going to complain.
Nice.
I don't get paid to complain, you know what I mean?
I hear that. What are you looking for?
I don't know, 300 price range. Fixer-upper, sure. Dump, I'll take a dump.
All right, awesome. Let me see what I can do. I'm at a walk with the church right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Walking for the Lord, I like that.
Thank you.
I do that myself, you know what I mean?
Awesome.
There we go, Chip Diamond right there getting his first deal.
Right, maybe. Selling
Let's
houses.
go.
That's the name of the game here. Don't sweat the technique.
Bathroom's operable. Okay, I'm going to go take a dump there.
Well, I was really curious today. I found you because you collaborated with Ed Bassmaster, who's Ryan's favorite comedian. And he came into your office and did a wholesale deal on the phone. And that was hilarious. So that's how I came to be. What were you trying to accomplish when you started, did you hire him? Do you know him? Did you go to high school with him? How did that happen?
Yeah, so Ed and I, we collaborated. He lives in Philly. He flew out to do the show, the podcast, and while he was in town, we had dinner. We got to talking, and that's when we decided, hey, let's shoot some content. We have some more content dropping too here in the next couple days. But yeah, I mean, it was great. He came into the office. He was cold calling some agents, some sellers. It was hilarious. I don't know, like if you can tell, I'm like cracking up in the back. Like I can barely hold a straight face. I'm like trying so hard not to laugh. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of was organic, and I really appreciate those guys, him and his videographer Drew. I actually originally reached out to Drew to work on some film stuff, and he's like, dude, do you want to get connected with Ed and shoot some stuff there, maybe have him on the show? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So kind of just organically happened through his videographer.
Got it. So you went to Philly to record an episode of your podcast, which is called Young Money Mindset.
Yeah, no, he flew out to Arizona to film the show out here, and then while he was in town, he stopped by at my office, and I'm redesigning my studio, so we had to shoot the podcast at Gridworks in Phoenix at their studio, and then he came back to my office, and that's when we shot that stuff, and we shot some other stuff as well that day. It was like 2 days of shooting, so we just tried to get as much content while they were here in Arizona from Philly. And then they ended up shooting back. I think it was on a Monday.
Cool. And how long, and you guys were, the video that you guys produced was in your actual office, Thrive Real Estate, right?
Yeah. Yep. So that was, right in our bullpen. Right where all the magic happens with all the guys. So everyone on the team was stoked. He came in Saturday, and only a handful of people were able to actually come in and meet him. But yeah, I mean, we were all just cracking up the whole time, man.
Curious about Thrive. Could you tell us about Thrive in maybe 30 seconds?
Yeah. So we're a real estate wholesale firm here in Phoenix. So we're all licensed real estate agents. I started my career off as a retail investor, and then made the transition into wholesale and opened up the Thrive Real Estate team, and just we've been going full speed ever since.
When was that you started Thrive?
Thrive started 3 years ago. So about 3 years ago, we got to start in what I call our closet office, which was like, I think a 10 by 10. We had 4 guys in there. And then about 2 years ago, we got this office, and a year from March, we're going to be moving out of our current office in Mesa, and I've already started kind of looking at our next progression, our next step here. So,
oh, amazing! Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, really grateful. We've just been growing. It seems like, the first couple of years of any business seems like it's really a lot of growth, and then it gets harder and harder. So I think we're in that really early stage right now of growth. I actually use DealMachine too, so I want to give a big shout out to you guys. I used DealMachine way back. I don't know how long DealMachine's been around. It's been a
8
while
years.
though. 8 years. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, this would have been, man, I got licensed 6 years ago. So, and I think this was like right as I was getting licensed. So this was maybe 5-6 years ago. I was running around taking the picture and shooting the postcard out and everything on that end. So it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we started out driving for dollars. We grew 44% last year because of the consumer data that we now pair with the subscription, and you could filter by people's spending habits, credit scores, occupations, and all that. So a lot of people come to us now for that type of data paired with properties. So if you haven't looked, I'd love to show you sometime, maybe after the podcast. It's awesome that you started that way. And that's how I started. That's why the product was driving for dollars. It's a great way to start. I know one thing you said was you were a retail investor before you became a licensed agent. Could you tell me more about what that meant?
Yeah. So I meant like retail agent. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I was a traditional agent, and a wholesaler made more. I saw the settlement sheet and he made more money than I did being the agent. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I was super, super green. I'm still learning. It seems like every day it's like drinking from a fire hose. I'm still learning a ton.
Yes.
But up front was like, how did these guys make this, money? And it was, I want to say like maybe $350,000 house. And I think they did like 15-20 grand on it. So nothing too crazy, but it was just enough where I was like, how are they doing that? And
what would your spread have been, or what was your spread as an agent versus what it would have been as a wholesaler?
Yeah, I made 9,000 in commission. I think I got like 2.5-3% of like 350. I think it was like right around 9 grand. And then I split that with my brokerage. So net was probably closer to like 7. And these guys made like 15-20. So basically double what I did. And just kind of piqued the curiosity where I was like, man, I got to start learning about this, and just dove in. Traditional story, like everyone, bigger pockets, and got plugged in with DealMachine. And, that was back when you guys just had the postcard thing. I remember I took a picture, I think, of my apartment, was trying to like test it out with like, I lived in a 1-bed, 1-bath shitty apartment in Phoenix. And I think I was like taking a picture, like trying to like see how the process and everything worked out. So
would you say the process of wholesaling versus the process of being an agent, would you say wholesaling is significantly less work?
I wouldn't use significant. I would say it could be less work. But I think that it depends on what model you're going with. So there's 2 main models that I've identified in wholesaling. You have your direct to seller model, and then you have your direct to agent model. I started off doing a direct to seller model. I've now pivoted towards a direct to agent model, and that's probably 99% of our business right now is direct to agent. I think direct to agent is going to be, quite a bit less work. I think direct to seller, you could have that conversation around, hey, is it less work or is it about the same? Because you're at the end of the day, you're working with a homeowner. You're typically working with a seller and a buyer.
What's direct to agent? What does the process of direct to agent look like?
Yeah, so I started off direct to seller, and then made the pivot because we were doing a ton of PPC and lead gen. But direct to agent, essentially what we do is we reach out. All we do is we cold call real estate agents in our market, and we solve the hardest problem about being a real estate agent. We're a cash client. The hardest part, in my opinion, of being an agent is acquiring a client. So we call them as a client, as someone that's, real in the marketplace, that's ready to go. We know our numbers, we have the credibility, we have the everything we need in order to make that agent, feel like they're comfortable. And and then that we just, we tap into their network, and I coach and train our guys on building a meaningful, lasting business. in my opinion, is about that book. So, direct to seller, you're going to maybe buy one house and get a huge rip on it, which is great, but you're always going to be cold calling. You're always going to be, driving for dollars. You're always going to be buying, skip tracing properties. Direct to agent's different because you're building a business where, you're the go-to person, and you're able to tap into that network where now it kind of flips the script where we're still cold calling every day. Our KPIs are still 250 dials. We're still pushing the needle forward, but some of it now is coming inbound. So you're having just a higher level conversation, typically with, an agent around, what their client needs are, why they're selling a house. It's just a lot of qualifying with agents. And honestly, talking them out of selling it to an investor. I tell people like our job direct to agent is we talk a lot of agents selling it out of investors and educating them on why they don't want to sell it to an investor to qualify the handful that, truly are investor deals. So
they're essentially bringing you a deal that they need a buyer for. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You have the network of buyers. So your position is there's no lead generation that you have to do with this other than establishing the relationship with the realtor. But then they're like, hey, I got this deal. Here's the details. And you are taking one of your buyers that you've been working with and you're marrying the two of them.
That's exactly. Yep. You're exactly correct. Yeah.
You're also getting the benefit to the other way. If you have a deal and you don't have a buyer, you can also approach that realtor on, hey, here is an opportunity for them as well, so that they can continue making spreads that way.
Yeah. Well, and it gets more interesting. I call it the double dip model. You can also pitch an agent on, hey, anything you were to bring me, Ryan, I'll actually, hire you to be the agent on it on the listing side. So not only are they now making money on the upfront, initial sale, but now we're, including them in on the listing when we flip it. So kind of a value add on both sides. And then, also providing them value. We have all of our inventory that we give access to all of our agents. So they may not, have a good investor client for us, but they may have a brother, sister, so on, a retail buyer looking for a property, and we have an off-market, fully renovated home getting ready to hit in Scottsdale, and they're like, perfect, we'll jump on it. So
yeah, I think that this method of wholesaling, the idea of agent outreach, is what is changing the culture of wholesale. Because for when I first started in our market, people hated wholesalers. Realtors hated us because they felt like we were taking deals away from them. But now the narrative is completely different. We get realtors all the time that are calling us, asking us for help. And you have basically made that part of your business. This is just as important as cold calling and driving for dollars is agent outreach. Reach out to the agents. And I think that's that has to be the way forward for us, because you're tapping into a resources that, for me, I don't have my realtor's license, so I can't get to that MLS, but having a relationship with somebody who can provides a bunch of benefits, and it's a free way of getting leads.
Yeah, and it's a great way to grow your business. I coach some of our guys that are happy with a solid database of agents that are going to produce 200,000 in revenue. And it may even be less agents than you would imagine, and they're happy with that. They're like, hey, I've grown my business to a point where I feel comfortable. And then they can start focusing in on other things or doubling down on wholesale. So I think it's a great model. And, Phoenix, I feel like, is definitely saturated in a sense there where you have a lot of people doing this model. And I don't know how it is across the country, if you guys are seeing it in other markets or not. But
it's definitely growing for sure.
Yeah. I feel like we started doing it 3 years ago. And I feel like it's, back in the day when we were doing it, people were like, you're stupid. You need to call it. You know what I mean? They were like saying all this negative stuff about it. And now it seems like it's kind of catching hold and growing.
Yep. Hey, so when you're talking to an agent, what do you say?
Pitch is really straightforward. Hey, we're looking for our next project. This is the one we just completed. do you happen to have anything coming down the pipeline? It's pretty straightforward. 99% of the times we know what they're going to say is they're going to say, no, I don't have anything right now. And then we pivot into the true reason of the call. The reason is not only for the property, but it's really to build a relationship. At the end of the day, we ask for, a property. But the real goal of that call is not to get a deal on the initial call. It's really to just see if that agent's investor friendly, we call it, and we have a tag. Some agents still look down on wholesalers, right? So some of them are just not willing to work with us. We want to identify that early on, and then we want to stay in front of and top of mind to these folks that are investor friendly, because it's just a matter of time when they're going to come across something. I mean,
what are some symptoms that you would say is a quick tell on whether they will or will not be a good one to work with?
So if they have the mindset that wholesaling is illegal, that's probably a good tell that they're like.
You tell them up front that you're a wholesaler.
So we tell them it's one of our exit strategies.
Okay.
We don't hide the truth. I know some of our competitors do that. They say, oh, we don't wholesale. We say it's part of our exit strategy. It's one of our exit strategies. We may take it down. We may wholesale it. But, when we say that, if they're like, hey, it's illegal, HB 2747 passed in Arizona, which essentially requires us to disclose that we are a wholesale buyer. So there's more disclosure around it now. And then me being licensed, I hold myself and our team to a higher standard. Agents seem to really gravitate towards, a licensee versus someone that may not be licensed. Just something just switches. I've had unlicensed reps call the same agent and then a licensed rep, and it's night and day difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they have any, old ways of thinking about wholesaling where they're still like, oh, it's illegal, it's, this or that, then it typically is not going to be. It's not our job to try to change their mind about wholesaling. That's usually a tall tale sign. Some will tell you straight up, oh, it's still illegal, you can't do that, da 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 da. And it's, it's not going to work at that point.
Their loss.
And some people ask if they can wholesale properties that are listed. And it sounds like you experienced that as a listing agent. Somebody bought the property and wholesaled it. So is that part of what you guys do as well? Is you look at listed properties and then contact the agent to wholesale that?
Yeah. So that's another one of our models is we do what's we double dip it essentially. So I've purchased properties on market and made a commission and an assignment fee. So I've been able to get both sides of it, so absolutely. You can wholesale straight off the MLS.
So how do you approach an agent when you're probably going to wholesale it and they've just got a property listed? I mean, if they've got it listed, it's probably for too high of a price to make sense for a wholesaler even, right? So are you just making really below list price offers?
Yeah, typically you're under list pretty substantially. But usually it's the ones that are, have been either listed a little while and the sellers are just like, the last 3 investors have canceled on us. We ended up listing it because the 2 wholesalers that we talked to put in $100 of earnest and backed out and used these crazy contracts. So we listed it to try to see if we could get an actual buyer. And then once we come in, we typically come in below list, substantially below list, but with a 0-day inspection, non-refundable earnest money. I've partnered with a moving company, so we offer, a free 30-mile move. There's a lot of different things we try to do to provide value and kind of set ourselves apart. But usually they're either upset to get your offer because it's so low, and they're emotionally involved, like a lot of agents are, which in my opinion, as an agent, you should try to keep your emotions out of it. At the end of the day, it's a business. We're not here to offend anyone. So they're either emotional and upset about the number, or they're trying to justify, hey, why is it this number? And that's when we're able to really kind of break down the investor side. And I call it wearing your investor hat versus your agent hat. But a lot of agents, they think of it strictly from a retail buyer. And one thing we do is early on is we talk them out of selling it to an investor. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but by doing that, essentially what they do is they qualify themselves. Because when you're saying, hey, look, I'm not probably the best buyer for this. It doesn't need, it may be original, but you could probably still get a retail buyer that's going to pay you significantly more. And then they tell you the reasons why that won't work. And then it kind of qualifies them. And then the question becomes, hey, this is what we feel like you can get retail. This is what you're going to get from an investor that can actually close. Is that difference worth it for your client? And that's usually the conversations we're having is, is that difference worth it? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So, and then we wholesale it. It's different on the disposition side. That's something we can get into if you guys want, right? When you're dispoing a property that's listed on the MLS, you can imagine, the calls that listing agents getting of like, what's going on here, So yeah, definitely interesting.
Dive into that. What is that like? What is the process of sending a deal out that is on the market, but also sending it out for assignment? What is that?
I think it starts with, obviously having a really good understanding of the buyer you're working with. But also, the main thing that I think is kind of an unspoken rule in wholesaling, and I'd love to hear both of your opinions on it, is when they know, typically on the disposition side, if the buyer knows that we can close on the property, they're a lot less likely to go to the seller or the listing agent and say, hey, what are they buying it at? And try to muddy the waters with us. For one, we'll never do business with them again. And we'll let, our network know, which the market in Phoenix, we all know each other.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing is, when they know we can close on it, it's not a question of, you're either going to sell it to these buyers or you're going to cancel. We're going to, resubmit a backup offer on the MLS and wait for you to cancel, right? They know, it's going to close. So it's a matter of, it kind of creates that sense of urgency that we all try to get. So it is different. I have some stories I can get into if you'd like about, just craziness on that side of things with people trying to cut us out, knocking on their door. And,
oh yeah, I want to hear that.
Pulling out the sign. I had my daughter just turned 8 months old, last week. And during her baby shower, or her gender reveal, is actually her gender reveal about a year ago, we had a property on market. We're in a disposition in Scottsdale, and another wholesaler got it. So, and this is the other thing, is other wholesalers will try to muddy the waters. They got it and went knocked on the door and essentially just flat out lied to the seller and said, hey, I see that you listed it, you're under contract, but the best way to get out of it is to sign a lease with your brother so they fabricated a lease. They signed a lease for 100 years at like $1,500 a month. And the agent called me and was like, hey, what? Like, my client has gone crazy. Like, they're saying they now have this lease that they never told me about. When I went on the listing appointment, they never mentioned anything about the lease. They, just totally didn't say anything about it. Now all of a sudden, and come to find out, they were getting instructed or coached by another wholesaler that knocked on their door. And, but it ended up working well because the listing agent was kind of on our side. They were like, hey, that's BS, So we ended up filing a memorandum against it, and they ended up dropping it and ripping up the lease basically. But yeah, that was, when I tell that story, people are like, man, that's crazy. Like, who would think of 100-year lease, at like $1,500 a month? And they're like, yeah, buy it. They kept telling them, yeah, we'll close, but you have to honor the lease. And we're like, no way. Yeah,
that's crazy. That is wild, man. I had somebody that didn't want to close and honored my sale price before, and ended up cutting a $50,000 check to me. So it cost $3,000 to get a lawyer to like really make them understand I was serious. And that's no joke. If you're under contract with somebody, you have to honor that. You can't make up a lease just to get out of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was legal binding agreement.
Take me back to when you started Thrive. What were you trying to accomplish by forming this company?
Yeah. So really the main thing is I saw there was I was actually a part of a team, right? These real estate teams that were always about the guy's name on the building, get him rich, right? He's the one doing everything. He's the guy. I call it the guy syndrome. But really, the Thrive Real Estate team is it's really a team of folks that all are trying to build their own personal net worth. And I think that's a really good way to do a real estate team where it's not like, employee employer type thing. It's more of a collaboration, and we're all able to keep deals in house. The other thing on, the main reason too is the engine. I call it the wholesale engine. Probably one of the most valuable things you can have access to being on a team, especially a wholesale team, is because let's say we have a great deal, rather than pushing it out and making 40 or 50 grand, a team member can take that down and just pay their team split, so half of that, and acquire that deal basically at 50% below what any other wholesaler would have purchased it at, and they know all the ins and outs about the deal. So I think that just being able to provide that wholesale engine for people to build their own net worth, structuring creative deals. I've helped a lot of investors that thought, hey man, I'll never be able to buy something. They join our team, and then we come across a good seller carry. We don't wholesale any of our creative deals. We typically only bring those in-house. And then I launched a private equity company where now we're able to kind of help on some of the funding side too. So if you were to join the team, so-and-so in the office gets a seller carry deal. We're able to help you fund it and add it into your rental portfolio, and it never sees, the wholesale market. So
how do you decide what to pay for an assignment fee?
So what we do is we send it out. So for example, let's say we have one on Brown right now in Mesa. We send it out, we shop it, and we understand, hey, this is what we would actually be able to wholesale it at. And then we take that number, and whatever split that acquisition member is on, they essentially just pay the team side. So for example, let's say if we send it out and we're like, hey, this is a $20,000 wholesale fee, and that acquisition member is on a 50-50 split, they would essentially just pay the $10,000 team. That whatever the team would have made is the 10 grand on that deal, and then they take the deal. So it ends up working out really well. Like anyone else would have paid the full 20, but being that they're essentially using their own dollars, to invest into the deal, we're able to cut the costs, on our end.
Yeah,
So
that's a really great opportunity for people on your team. Good job for you to figure that out.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's, I love real estate because it does have the ability to change someone's life, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's changed my life. I come from nothing, and I still get to learn and be around some really great people. And it's in a collaborative environment, I think is different than kind of your, I don't want to say corporate environment, but your traditional, employer employee kind of environment, where some of these firms are really geared more towards, hey, my name's on the building, these are your tasks, this is what you have to do type mentality. So
what are you looking forward to this year the most?
Man, really biggest thing is adding more rental units in my portfolio. That's really where I'm at. I want to really take 25 to build this foundation and learn. Really grateful you guys reached out. I'm happy to, if you guys have any education, any courses, anything like that, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. But really just, look at how can I invest into myself? How can I invest into the portfolio and continue to grow? I have an 8-month-old, so I'm really valuing that time at home and seeing kind of the big picture now of like, the 9 to 5 and the company is great. But just seeing, that long-term vision of being home, being with my family. That's the biggest thing right now for 25.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And you've got to have a first birthday coming up this year as well, which will be very exciting. If I could make a magic wand and help you solve any type of data issue, I would love to hear that. As an example, we just had Chad Young on, and he's in Idaho doing about 100 deals per year. And he was like, how do I find properties that have combined lots? It's like, I know these exist, I just don't know how to filter for them. And I found for him in the legal description in Spokane, Washington, which is where he invests, they always put LTS for lots, and then they list the number of lots. So we filtered that. I got him his list of like 2,900 double lots. And so I was just wondering if there's anything like that you've ever like scratched your head on or wished existed.
Yeah, I think agent data is the next big thing, David, and you're the man to do it. I think understanding the beautiful thing about our model is we know there's no hiding in real estate, right? As an agent, I know how many deals you did, right? There's no hiding. All of it's public info. So we pull a lot of data right now through the MLS, but there's always different things that I would really find value in is understanding this particular agent's been licensed for this long. We have that data from the Department of Real Estate. But how many deals have they done, let's say in the last 6 months? And out of those, 10 deals they've done, let's say in 6 months, how many of them have been in Phoenix? How many of, kind of segment their categories a little. So that way we can have a higher conversation. For example, if we were to reach out to Ryan and we understand he only does business in Scottsdale, we're going to call as a Scottsdale buyer, right? So it's just aggregating, data in a more friendly way for our team to navigate it, and then having it in a CSV file that is compatible with the CRM, so it inputs it correctly where we're actually able to use the data too is another big thing. But yeah, any agent data, like any more. Even like we've started trying to get more data on the particular agent, like their bio and their, I don't know, David, what that would look like if we could scrape, their Facebook account, and input that, right? So it's not like we just get the data like the production, but we get some other data. I think would be really really valuable. I'd love to talk to you about that too off air.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. I'll definitely get back to you with more info on agents. I think we've got some stuff, and I'll do a little research as well. But thanks. That's a really great thing for me to go after. Dude, and thanks. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed getting to know you on this podcast. Appreciate your time. And I loved hearing your story about how you've built an incredible business that's going to help you spend more time with your family around direct to agent. So that was a new one for us and really appreciate it. I think the audience will enjoy that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on. And if you guys want to stay connected, make sure you guys connect with me on Instagram.
We're there.
And I'd love to stay connected and definitely chat further offline. Thank you guys.
Yep. All right. See you, Luke.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.